Hello there, folks. You're listening to A Mugs Game, the new sports betting podcast with your hosts, Smeg and Ronnie. Over the next few months, we will be previewing all the major sporting events of the year with a view to make some money.
Hi, it's Ronnie, and if you love sport and love a betting angle to these sporting competitions, you're in the right place. Today, to start off with, we will try pick out some value bets in some outright GAA, soccer and especially tennis markets. But going forward, we'll look to engage ourselves in some serious debate on a wide variety of sports.
But ultimately, we're all about trying to pull one over the big bad bookies. So, without further ado, Ronnie, let's hear it. Your two sporting events that this summer that you really want, you're really excited about getting involved in from a betting point of view.
Well, as a sports fan, this time of year is always a brilliant time of the year. Coming into May, June, July, August. For myself, for these, if I had to pick the two sporting events or occasions, I would say the World Cup is the obvious one. I can't wait for that to kick off. I think it's less than 2 months now, 6-7 weeks maybe. That's my first one I'm most looking forward to, and along with that, the revamped GAA Hurling Championship, the new system with so many teams playing so many games in a short space of time, it really whets the appetite for supporters and for punters alike. World Cup wise, my main reason for looking forward to it, if we look at it from a betting point of view straight away, the six favourites, Brazil, Germany, Spain, France, Argentina and Belgium are all rated between 9-2, 5-1 and 10-1, so very not much difference between these in the betting markets. Shows how open it is, and that leads to better competition to look forward to. So they will be the two Smeg that I'm most looking forward to, the GAA Hurling Championship and the World Cup in Russia.
Well, I noticed, Ronnie, that you didn't mention the Gaelic Football Championship, and I'm very curious as to why that is.
Well, it's not that I'm not looking forward to it, but I suppose it's a bit like Sky's Monday Night Football. No, seriously, when you come in on Monday night, you expect to see
Swansea against West Brom.
You expect to see Gary Neville there, and Henry is there instead, and so the football championship for me doesn't start really this year until the Super 8 comes in, and that's the middle of July. It's just too far away at the moment. Between now and then is a bit of shadow boxing really, and it's a bit of off we play Wicklow, the winners play Dublin. In Leinster, for example, in Connacht, the winners of Galway have a great game, Galway Mayo, then the winners play Sligo. So it's the same, it ends up in the same as it has been all the time.
Same cycle, yeah.
But you do get the top 8 teams ultimately in the middle of July, and then then you've got the top teams playing each other for 3 or 4 weeks in a row, and I think that's when the Gaelic Football Championship really begins, whereas the hurling one begins in 2 weeks' time. It begins from the off.
Yeah.
You mean it starts nearly as strong as it finishes.
Yeah.
Whereas the football, we're waiting 2 months for those 8 teams to be there.
Yeah.
Now, in saying that, I've looked through the draw, and I suppose it's probably my first bet that I'll stake on here. If we look at the draw for the Leinster Football Championship in particular, the draw has been very kind to Kildare. Okay, so Kildare are out at the end of May. They're going to be playing the winners of Louth and Carlow.
You're not seriously suggesting a bet on Kildare, the perennial underachievers?
Yeah, they are.
Bottlers in Gaelic football. They are.
There's teams. We've all had bogey teams. Like Kildare are right up there. You've got Spurs in soccer, Galway hurlers during the noughties. They're always Waterford hurlers where you expect them to do well and they don't, and vice versa. But no, my bet is on Kildare to reach the Leinster final. Ultimately, that's what I think, to reach the Leinster final. So it's the Leinster market without Dublin, basically. Kildare have a dream draw. At the end of May, they've got another month to prepare. They've got Louth or Carlow in the quarter final, and the winner and win that game, they've got either Laois, Wexford or Westmeath. So basically, we're looking at it right now. Kildare, we would say, we wouldn't argue too much that are a top half Division 2 side. Would you agree with that? Top half Division 2 side.
Well, I would consider that they in Division 1, even though they had 7 losses.
They did, but the naked facts are they had 7 losses. But if you look at them a bit closer, those losses should stand to them come the summer, because they actually weren't. Like, they lost to Tyrone and Monaghan by a point in both games. They lost Donegal by 2 points. I think their biggest margin of defeat was, I think, 7 maybe to both Dublin and Mayo, where they obviously didn't play well. What I'm saying is those games should stand to them when they play. They're basically playing Division 3 sides. Louth or Carlow, both in Division 3. Louth lost every game in Division 2, relegated Division 3. Carlow have come up from Division 4. Their best player is going to be gone for the summer. Brendan Murphy's going to America. So this is who they have in the quarter final. If they get over that, their semi-final opponents, Laois, who are in Division 1, Division 4 this year, Wexford are Division 4 team next year, and Westmeath finish mid-table Division 3. So these are teams that are going to be playing. So they're on the opposite side to Meath and Dublin. So Kildare to win 2 games. Where they play Louth or Carlow will be on in either Tullamore or Portlaoise, depending on who it is. So it's not like they're playing even in Louth or Carlow. Do you know what I mean? And then the semi-final that they, provided to get over that, would be on in Croke Park. And I just think they're a good bet to get to the Leinster final.
Yeah, when you consider that Roscommon had a similar experience last year, did poorly in Division 1, but those games obviously stood them in good stead. They won the Connacht title.
They did, and that's Roscommon did win their last league game last year, which they said boosted them. Kildare didn't quite do that, but the point of it remains, and Roscommon have come back up this year as well, showing that they probably are just in between that Division 1, Division 2 area, and along with Cavan. I put Kildare in that category. And as you said, Roscommon it stood to them playing Division 1 last year. I think the way they did win the Connacht Championship, and they did draw with Mayo before I know they're well beaten the replay afterward. But what I'm saying is Kildare's Division 1 league campaign should stand to them come Leinster Championship, and they should have, like a year ago, for example, they beat Laois by 14 points in Championship. I don't think that the likes of Laois are going to shorten that gap in the space of a year. I don't see any reason why that should happen. Yeah,
there's no evidence of it based on the league anyway.
There isn't. No, so I think Kildare are a very good bet, a very solid bet to reach the Leinster final. And also, sorry, with the Super A system, you're rewarded for you reach the provincial final. You're only, even if you lose that game, you're only one game away from being in the Super 8. From another 3 games, because the provincial finalists will play a qualifier winner, and then if they win that, they're in the Super 8. So you're being rewarded for reaching the provincial final.
Well, I have to say, you've made a believer of me there. As part of the double, they are priced at 1 to 2.
1 to 2 is
considering the teams that they'd be playing. 1 to 2 is short, but considering the teams that they'd be playing, it seems like a value price ultimately. Betting
wise, I'm not a fan of single bets unless 4 to 7 is kind of where I'm at. I don't like going 1 to 2, 4 to 9s. I
would be the same myself.
So I have looked and I've seen to put them in with it. It's an obvious one, doesn't need much detail. Kerry to win the Munster Football Championship to boost those odds. Kerry have, again, a dream draw. Not that they need one down in Munster, I suppose, but they're at home in the semi-final to Clare or Limerick. That's their Munster semi-final. They're home to Clare, Limerick and Killarney. Obviously to win that, so they've got a Munster final then against probably Tipperary or Cork, obviously. And
you don't see the likes of Cork putting them up?
I don't. I think they're a long way. Tipperary and Cork are much. Tip might have an argument with you there. The argument there would be who will win that game, Tip or Cork. I think more than what will happen in the final. Now the final will be in Thurles or Cork. That is one thing to say, but no, Kerry. I think actually Kerry. I was even looking at the outright market for the Ireland. Kerry 11 to 2 with Ladbrokes is potential. Haven't staked yet. Potential each way bet with Ladbrokes there in Division 2. The 4 Ireland minor wins in a row. Fitzmaurice has stayed there. I don't think the league. They didn't treat the league the way they did last year. They won the league last year, and ultimately come August, they didn't seem to be at their best in those 2 Mayo games.
Very flat.
This year they just did enough in the league, tipped away in the league, and they were missing a lot of players. I think they're going to have a hell of a squad come the summer, and I think the new system will suit Kerry, the Super 8, where you're guaranteed. We're going to have 3 games at that stage of the year where they've come in a bit cold in recent years, maybe from Munster being quite poor, or they've had a couple of easy quarter-final wins over Galway as well. So I think.
Do you consider Kerry to be the main contenders or the main pretenders to the Dublin throne?
Absolutely, yeah. Looking at the draw right now, I expect Kerry are not going to be in the same, presuming Kerry and Dublin win their provincial championships, they're not going to be in the same group in the Super 8s. Then I know it's presumed, but the both should top that group. You're looking at a Kerry Dublin final. So I do think there's potential the value in 11 to 2 each way bet on Kerry with Ladbrokes. But for the moment, I'm just going to stake here. I'm going to stake a 4-point double on Kildare and Kerry. Kildare to reach the Leinster final and Kerry to win Munster. That 4-point double is evens. My point system, Smeg, goes from 1 point to 5 points. 5 points being my max bet. It's strength of confidence bet. 1 point being my small stake bet.
So your 1 pointers will be more value bets and maybe a big price.
Not necessarily. It just means less confidence. Really, it's not really about the price. It's
a bet that you fancy.
Yeah,
you like the price maybe.
Yeah. Well, the stronger the fancy, the higher the points.
Yeah, of course.
Basically. So I'm saying that 4 point bet is a strong bet.
Fairly
strong bet. So to recap, the 4 point double: Kildare to reach the Leinster football final and Kerry to win the Munster football championship. You've got to wait. I think the Munster football final is the last week in June. I think June 23rd. So we have to wait 7 weeks or whatever it is. But that's our time frame for that.
Okay, brilliant. I can't really argue with your reasoning there. I'll certainly be following you on that myself. But interesting about the hurling championships. It seems very open this year betting wise. Do you consider that to be a good thing or a bad thing? How do you approach the hurling championship?
Betting wise, not so sure if it's a good thing when things are too open. Usually, bettors we like to get a gulf in class. We like to attack it from that angle a lot. But first of all, from a supporter's point of view, it's a really exciting new system where you've got a Leinster championship with 5 teams, you've got a Munster championship with 5 teams. They play each team once, so you've got 4 matches, and it's over 5 weekends. So you've got to be fully at it from the middle of May to the middle of June. So you've got top matches every week, and they all matter because what happens is the top 2 teams go into provincial finals, go on from there. The third team is still in the competition. They go on to play an extra round before they can get into a quarter final. So basically the bottom 2 teams in both championships are out by mid-June. So you're getting rewarded and punished basically for every game, And even reaching provincial final, you've got less match to play. That you go straight into an All-Ireland semi-final if you win your province. So I think the system is. I think it's
great because what it does, it as you say, it makes every game matter.
Yeah.
And that's so important at this, from the word go, when the championship starts, every game you play matters, and it'll be particularly competitive down in Munster, I'd imagine. Yeah,
and I'm looking at absolutely. You've got Munster, you've obviously got Tipperary, Cork, Waterford, Limerick, and Clare, and very little between them. From my point of view, you think squad wise and over the last couple of years, I would think overall Tip and Galway are slightly ahead of the rest. But if we look at it from a betting point of view in the Munster Championship, not all markets are up yet. We're still in April, of course, but Boyles do have some tasty markets up at the moment, and one that really interests me is one which is basically opposing Waterford, who were obviously the All-Ireland finalists last September, had a poor league campaign, got relegated went out quite easily really, out of Division 1A, and I'm looking at the market that Boyles have up on Waterford to win less than 2 matches in Munster. So to win under 1.5 games in the Munster Championship, that is the bet I'm looking at. That's a bet. That odds are 13-8 on Waterford to win less than 2 games.
Okay, but from I would say that considering that they got to the All-Ireland final last year, would you really fancy the likes of Limerick and Clare to give them a right test this year, and if so, what would your reasoning be for that? Well,
if we look at the way it is for Waterford going into this Munster Championship, first of all, every team has 2 home games and 2 away games. Waterford don't. They've no home. They're not playing in a game in Waterford, so they've got to go to Ennis to play Clare. They've got 2 other games, and they've got to go to Gaelic Grounds to play Limerick. I would consider Limerick and Clare probably their main rivals for that 2nd or 3rd spot in that group, and they've got to go to away to both those sides. They've got to play Tipperary in Gaelic Grounds, Limerick, and they've got to play Cork and Thurles, so they're not at home for any of the games. The other disadvantage Waterford have is they're not playing the first weekend, which means they've got to play 4 weeks in a row after that. Now, I don't think their squad is as strong as some of the other ones, including like Tip and Limerick, which we've seen Limerick in the league show without the Napier players the strength of their squad. So I think Waterford are, and also Shane Bennett has gone. He's gone for the year as well, and I just saw something in bringing the league in to play Kilkenny down in Walsh Park, and Kenny beat them very easily, very, very easily. And with that Waterford team, they had 12 or 13 players playing in that game that appeared at some stage in last year's All-Ireland final against Galway. Now, don't read too much of the league, and you don't know what trainer were doing so on, but there was something that looked very worrying if you're a Waterford supporter. And I think Waterford are...
And can you pinpoint what that is?
Well, you got to look at it. You got to look at some of their best players last couple of years. Brick Walsh, Kevin Moore. These are year on as well. Obviously, you got top young hurler and Shane Bennett's not there now. He's 21 now. You'd be expecting him to be setting things alight now at the moment. I think they've got another couple of injuries down there as well, and I just think with them maybe dropping back a little bit, and the likes of maybe Limerick improving that a little bit. I think the bet market is a little bit off. The basically Boyles have Waterford as kind of basically joint second favourites behind Tip with Cork, and I'm not so sure they are that. I think they'll do well to win 2 or 3 games in Munster. And the good thing with this market as well is that it's a Munster Championship. There's going to be a draw or two in it. Waterford can draw a game and it doesn't make a difference to our bet.
Yeah.
From betting point of view, I'm saying Waterford 13-8 to win less than 2 games. I'm looking at it and think I can't see how to win more than 2 games. So you're bringing it down to 1 game for yourself that you're worried about, So I am going to stake on. I'm going to stake on that. I'm going to stake 2 points on Waterford to win under 1.5 games in the Munster Championship at 30 days. And that's with Boyle Sports.
Okay.
There's actually Boyles have another very interesting market up. It's season match bet. The unfortunate thing is you can only do it singly. For example, Kilkenny versus Waterford season match bet. Kilkenny are 4-9, which I think is a great price. But unfortunately, at the moment, they don't seem to let you put out with a double or whatever. Now they haven't all the season match bets opened yet, so I'm looking forward to seeing what will come down the line. For example, with that one, Kilkenny are in the Leinster Championship. It's obviously, no disrespect to Offaly, but Offaly are in that. They will beat Offaly, and you're narrowed down to 3 matches that Kilkenny will be playing that you have to win.
You'd have to expect them to be beating Wexford and Dublin, surely.
Yeah, so you're looking at that, and you're looking at where Waterford have probably a harder championship, and you're looking at the season match bet who gets further. Already, I think Kilkenny have an advantage. Yeah, and what I've said to you about Waterford coming back into the pack a bit, it would be a good bet, but there probably will be better value as the weeks go on when Boyles release all their season match bets. But it's something just for anyone out there to keep an eye on with Boyles, because it's an interesting market.
Okay, brilliant. So we have our second bet a tip, and that is for 2 points in Waterford at under 1.5, matches 1 at 13-8 with Boyle Sports. So I'm just going to move on straight to the World Cup, because it's obviously the World Cup is looming. So just let's get straight into it. Who was your early money gone on?
Where I've looked at attacking the market here, Smeg, is I've targeted weak groups. When I say weak groups, I mean groups without the top 6 as the seeds. So you have your top seeds in groups: Brazil, Germany, Spain, France, Argentina and Belgium. That's only 6 groups, but there's 8 groups, so there's 2 more groups, and they are the top seeds in those groups are Russia, who are the hosts, and Poland. So straight away they're the 2 groups I'm looking at: Russia's group and Poland's group. And if I look into them from a betting angle, I've looked at Egypt in Russia's group to qualify, and also a similar reason Senegal, another African nation, in Poland's group. I've looked at them. Both of them will be 3rd seeds or 3rd favourites in their respective groups. And I think there's value on both of those African teams to get out of the groups, especially with a weak top seed, where those are the type of groups, if you look back over the years, where draws happen and not one team wins 7 points or 9 points out of 9. For example, in the last World Cup, for example, one of those groups that didn't have one of those top 6 was the group England were in. England and Italy were in that group, but both of them, even we knew before going to the tournament, Uruguay were actually top seeds in that group. Who came out of the group? Costa Rica. They kind of made hay with a weak group. They came out of the group. They actually topped the group, Costa Rica. Yeah, I remember great odds. And also another group that didn't have one of the big guns as top seeds in 2014. Greece came out of a group. Because they didn't have a top. I think Colombia might have been the top seed in the group, but no, they weren't in Brazil or they weren't in Argentina. I think value can be got.
Well, getting on to the Poland group now, you're making the point that you believe that Senegal are a good bet to get out of that group, but they have Japan and Colombia, and have you got reason to believe that Japan and Colombia are there to be opposed, and even Poland themselves? Well,
yeah. Well, it's more the odds. Like Senegal with Boyle Sports again are 11-8 to get out of the group. I think that's good. That's good value. If you look at Senegal's team, you know from the Premier League, they've got Sadio Mane, Liverpool obviously is their main player, class act. They've got Koulibaly, centre half from Napoli. They've got Kouyaté, West Ham's Kouyaté. They've got Idrissa Gueye from Everton midfielder. They've got Mohamed Diame, who's had a good last 3 months for Newcastle. They've got a lot of talent in that team.
So they've
not
got
just
a good
Mana.
spine,
They've
a good core.
got a good spine that they have. Japan.
But we've seen that from African teams in the past. Say, for example, in Ghana and the Ivory Coast have had great players and in the past, and yet haven't produced in the World Cup. So why?
That's true. Well, Senegal's last appearance, actually, my memory was 02. Remember, they actually did. They turned up in 02 in Japan, Korea, and got out of group. And actually, one of their players that they that Flatouma Alou Cisse was playing. He's actually their manager now. So it'll be interesting if that look from 02 carries forward to 2018. But no, Senegal have a decent squad, and they don't have they don't have a top tier side. And Poland are the side. We've seen Poland. I've seen it myself in the Viva against Ireland before the Euros. They're a decent side. Got Lewandowski, obviously. Their functional side, I wouldn't be worried about them. I think they're worth taking on in that group. I think Senegal actually topping that group wouldn't surprise me. So I think 11 to 8 to just get out of the group is really good value. It's really good value, and I'm staking 2 points in that right now.
Okay, fair enough. What about Egypt?
Yep, Egypt are in the group with Russia, Saudi Arabia and Uruguay. Russia are the hosts, and that's why they're the top seeds. I saw some of their recent friendly last month against France, where France beat them 3-1. They were awful. I think they're on their third head coach in the last year, Russia. Some of their better players are like Zhirkov, who used to play for Chelsea. They're well over the hill. I think Russia their record in tournaments recently is horrendous as well. They were in England and Wales group, if you remember, in Euro 16. I think they only got a point out of 3 games.
Yeah.
In the tournament before that, World Cup 2014, they were in with Belgium's group. Again, they didn't win a game in that either. I think they got 2 points from their 3 games, so they're carrying a bit of baggage as well.
I imagine that they're, sometimes host nations they rise to the occasion, but I'd imagine that there's almost an unhealthy pressure on this Russian team and these Russian groups of players that probably wouldn't. Certainly in the past they've never shown the sort of character required to rise to these sort of occasions. They
certainly haven't, no. And then if you look at if you go to the strength, if you look at actually Egypt and why choosing Egypt, if you look at they've obviously got Mo Salah, who's
one of the best players in the world.
One of the best players in the world, simple as that. At the moment, incredible. And it doesn't look as if he's getting tired. He's not losing any form. He's just relentless. And I presume he's going to carry that forward. Otherwise, they've got a few other players you might know in the Premier League. They've got Hegazi, the West Brom centre half. They've got El Neni, the Arsenal midfielder, who's injured now, but he is back for the war. He's back in a few weeks, and he's a good player, good midfielder.
Very good player, yeah.
He's going to play as well. El Mohammadi, of Hull and Aston Villa, he's going to be there as well, and Ramadan Sofi of Stoke as well. So they've got a sprinkling of talent behind Salah as well to show that they will threaten at least that group. That group. So I'm staking 2.5 points on Egypt to come out of that group at 11 to 8 as well. Same odds, just slightly more confident on the Egyptians doing that.
Okay, brilliant. So that's the 2 more bets. We have 2.5 points on Egypt at 11 to 8 to qualify from their group, and is that with Boyle Sports?
That's in Boyle's, yeah.
And 2 points on Senegal at 11 to 8, also with Boyle Sports, and that is to get out of their group as well. But we can't talk about the World Cup without mentioning our noisy neighbours, England. Is there a market out there to back for or against them?
Yeah, well, I think the English team isn't a good side. The group, they've got a good group though. They've got Belgium, but they don't have to play them until the third game. So they've got Panama and Tunisia. So it's a really good group for England. You look at the markets out there; they're 4-1 not to get out of the group. It's not because of the group they're in. You'd fancy them to get out of the group this time, all right? Will they go any further? I wouldn't be so sure. I'd be looking at the market, last 16 market, 2-1 to get knocked out in the last 16. Sounds quite good to me. That's where I'm looking at with this English side. But if you look at for England, I look through the last 4 PFA teams of the years, and so that's 44 players. Only 13 of them have been English players. That have even on those team leaders, but it will show the talent actually isn't there. Now underage it is. They've won the under 17, under 20 World Cups in the last year, so there's something there coming through. But this current side,
Where do you think their main weaknesses? Midfield?
Well, it is midfield, because you look at them going forward. They do have players who have had good seasons in Kane and Sterling and Lingard, Vardy, these type of players. But if you look at who they're playing with their clubs, who's feeding them from behind them, Eriksen is feeding like Dele Alli and Kane, you know. Sterling's getting fed by De Bruyne, Silva, these guys, you know. There just isn't a player like that on the English team that's going to make that creative player in midfield. They're very limited midfield, and Southgate's always gone on with his philosophy of playing out from the back and so on, and that's all well and good, but I actually don't know who the players are in midfield to make that system work. If I was him, he'd be really looking at playing on the break with the pace to have up front, you know. But that's what he says. He doesn't impress me when he speaks either. In the last 16 is where I'd be thinking England would be caught. From my point of view, looking as regards a bet though, I'm not staking on that yet. As a bet, I'm looking at the market Paddy Power have on who's going to make the English squad,
right?
You know, and one player interested me at odds against, and that's Crystal Palace's Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who's 5-4. Loftus-Cheek, no doubt, yeah. Loftus-Cheek is 5-4 to be on the plane. And now
Loftus-Cheek is not a name that would stand out to me now. You know, as a candidate for the England squad, as an obvious candidate for the England squad. So you'll have to. Yeah, well,
I remember last November, the November internationals. I don't know if you remember. Loftus-Cheek actually played against Germany. It was 0-0 game, but he was man of the match, and it wasn't just. I saw the game. It wasn't just one of those ones where someone is blown out of proportion by the media for playing well. He was very, very good. After the game, Southgate was waxing lyrical about him. He had him underage with underage teams with England and had a good relation with all the rest. Now Loftus-Cheek started the season with Palace, but he got injured. He's been injured for the middle third, more than that, of the season. He's only back in the last few weeks, but since he's come back, he has played well. He actually even scored yesterday in the win over Leicester City, so he's coming back at a nice time to make a push for this English spot. But I suppose the main reason that I'm attracted to this bet is because Oxlade-Chamberlain's out. You know, that's another midfielder gone. There's no sign of Adam Lallana getting fitter at the moment, so I think there is value on backing off the Cheek to make this squad at 5-4. The issue with it, of course, like most issues with betting, is that, you know, he could get injured next week, you know, and that bet's out the window. There's no refund on that, you know. There's, you know, someone gets injured, but listen, that's gambling. But I think he has a better chance than odds against to make this English squad, especially, like I said, with those couple of injuries, and they're in positions he's going to be taken up.
So who are his main rivals for that final spot on the England squad, would you say? Now that Oxlade, you know, the loss of Oxlade-Chamberlain to the England squad is obviously has opened up a position for someone like Loftus-Cheek, but who would you say are his main rivals?
Well, midfielders wise, Dyer and Henderson are going to be going. Jack Wilshere probably will as well, you would say. Then the likes of Sterling would be included as a midfielder, even though he's more of an attacker. So I would say Lallana probably would be, but Lallana hasn't kicked the ball. You know, he hasn't played, and he came back whatever it was last month and got injured straight away. So I don't know how right he is. So I would say Lallana might be one. Also, a lot of talk Jonjo Shelvey maybe. He's had a good few months for Newcastle. They would probably be those Lallana and Shelvey probably would be his main rivals.
But because you were, as you were saying, Southgate was waxing lyrical about Loftus-Cheek after that Germany match. He obviously likes him. I would also mention that, you know, Southgate was the under-21 manager while Roy Hodgson was the England manager, and maybe they have a relationship there where you know, that could be a factor as well, that Roy would be pushing for Loftus-Cheek and so,
absolutely, especially when he's come back in. Palace have had, you know, they've won their games. They have been 5-0 yesterday. He scored, as I said. He's played the last couple of games, and I just think it's the perfect timing to be right back. And it couldn't be nearly better for him. You know, Oxlade-Chamberlain gets injured, he comes back, plays reasonably well. And I just think I'm going to stake 1.5 points on Loftus-Cheek to make the English squad at 5-4, and that's with Paddy Power.
Okay, brilliant. So that's our final bet there from Ronnie. It's the 1.5 points at 5 points on Loftus-Cheek at 5-4 to make the England squad of Paddy Power, and the reasoning seems pretty rock solid to me. It's one of those bets that is a bit left field, but that's what you have to do as a punter. You have to really search those markets with a lot of rigour, and hopefully that's one that will work out for us all, and for anyone who follows us. So I think have you got any other bets there you wanna
no, that's they are my bets done for now. Smeg, yeah, as I said, the 4-point double on Kildare and Kerry in the Gaelic football, the 2 points on Waterford Hurlers to win under 1.5 games in Munster, and the 2.5 points on Egypt to get out of the group in the World Cup, 2 points on Senegal to get out of the group as well, and the last one, the fifth bet, was 1.5 points on Loftus-Cheek to get on that plane to Russia.
Okay, brilliant stuff.
So they're my bets for the moment, Smeg. You asked me earlier on about 2 events I was most looking forward to, so I should return the favour. And could you tell me the 2 events you're most looking forward to over the next couple of months?
Yeah, well, obviously I'm really looking forward to the World Cup. I'm really looking forward, as a massive GAA fan, I'm looking forward to both the hurling and the Gaelic championships. At the moment, I'm really enjoying the snooker championship. I'm actually will be going to the World Snooker final semi-finals in Sheffield next weekend. But obviously, my bread and butter is tennis. I'm a massive tennis fan, and I follow it very closely. And from a betting point of view, I'd say more than anything else that the 2 sporting events I'm really looking forward to in the next couple of months are the French Open, on the clay in France, in Paris, and of course on the grass at Wimbledon in England.
I was looking back at the last few Grand Slams in the men's tennis, and I was pretty much surprised to see that the last 5 Grand Slams have again all been won by Federer and Nadal. 2017 Australian Open, Federer. French Open last year, Nadal. Wimbledon, Federer. Then it went back, Nadal won the US Open. Then this year Australian Open won by Federer, and now we enter the French Open where Nadal is a 4-9 shot. I'm just wondering, to me, that these guys were, the battles between these guys around 10 years ago, 07, 08, 09, 2010.
Yeah, 08 is the greatest Grand Slam final of all time, probably the Wimbledon 08 final, when the rivalry was probably at its best. But it's amazing, as you're right, it's amazing to see them, that they're both at the top of the game, and you're probably... So
Federer is 37 this summer, Nadal is turning 32. Why are they still dominating the game? Like, what's the main reason for it?
Well, I suppose one thing that can't be overlooked is the simple fact is that they're 2 of the greatest players we've ever seen. Like, they are beasts. They are. There's no getting away from the fact that they are probably the 2 best players we've ever seen. And the reason why they're dominating now, obviously there is, because it's a different time in sports now, where with sports science and nutrition and all the sort of the background help that they get to keep themselves in shape is one of the reasons why the likes of Federer in particular has had such longevity. Obviously, he doesn't play a very busy schedule anymore. He sort of primes himself. I'm not even sure if he will play the French Open this year, because he didn't do it last year, and it worked out for him as he won Wimbledon. So he sort of rests himself during the year, looks after himself, and he primed himself for the big tournaments. And obviously Wimbledon is the one tournament that he'll have his eye on this year. So obviously these days they obviously look after themselves very well, and they have all the best people behind them to make sure they have the right nutrition and the right fitness and coaching and that. But the other point that has to be mentioned regarding this is, well, there's 2 main points. One is the demise of Novak Djokovic.
What's happened to him? Like, what's happened to Djokovic?
Well, look, I can only speculate really, but it seems to me that he has alluded to this in press conferences as well. He just lost a bit of passion for it. He was so dominant there for a 2-year spell, that really. When it ended, it actually opened the door for the likes of Federer and Nadal to walk back in. And of course, Nadal had his injury problems, and he seems to have, I wouldn't say completely gotten rid of them, but he's managed to keep himself fit for the tournaments, the main tournaments he wants to keep himself fit for, which is French Open. But Djokovic, obviously, he seems to have just lost his passion for it, and then he obviously doesn't have the same team around him anymore.
He got rid of his coach.
Got rid of his coach. He obviously got rid of Boris, and he's brought in the, last year, and he brought in the likes of Mario Ansic and Agassi, and it just felt that it just wasn't the same man. He didn't have the same confidence that he's had in the past, and he has been a bit of a confidence player. But you can't underestimate how good Djokovic was either, because he actually, if only for him, Federer, we could be talking Federer could have nearly 30 Grand Slams, So I'd say it's the demise of Djokovic, obviously, and also the fact that the youngsters coming up just aren't good enough. They just aren't at the level that Nadal and Federer are.
Well, if we look at that younger brigade, even towards the say Wimbledon, so if we leave out the French Open for now,
because obviously with Nadal being such a strong favourite,
what is he won? 10 of the last 13. He basically wins when he's fit, doesn't he?
Yeah.
If we look at those younger players like Kyrgios and Zverev and Raonic for Wimbledon, is there any value in them at this moment?
Well, actually, do you know what? They're all pretty short. I don't see much value in a lot of the young ones. Like Zverev, it seemed like come the US Open last year, obviously that. It really did seem that he was primed to make a big run at it, because there's been a lot of hype. He's won, he's won a couple of Masters Series events, and there was an awful lot of hype about him, and he just hasn't seemed to be able to produce when it comes to the Grand Slams. And this year he's had, he's had a decent year, but he really should have. You really would have been expecting him to kick on and win more titles. But he lost to Chung who isn't a youngster to be looking out for in the future as well. But I just don't think Chung serves big enough to do well at Wimbledon. But
there are some big servers out there for Wimbledon. What about the likes of Isner, Karlovic, Anderson? These guys are big servers. That's obviously.
Yeah, well, Karlovic for my money is the greatest server I've ever seen. Oh, what an unbelievable server! Like, he's had so much success in the game, and the man can't even hit through his backhand. Like, he only ever slices his backhand. Yeah. So, but he's a 39-year-old. He's renowned for getting involved in these massive, especially at Wimbledon, these massive long 5-set matches where the first four are all tie breaks, and then he ends up winning 25, 23 in the last set. But he could win a few rounds, but he's not a serious contender. Isner had obviously had a great win this year, winning the Indian Wells Masters, which is a massive win for him to win a Masters event. But he's never done well on the grass, and the main reason for that is, I know his serve is so big, but he just doesn't move well enough on the grass. He's just not comfortable with.
He was involved in one of the longest matches there, wasn't he, a couple of years ago?
Yeah, it was
for about 4 days.
70-68. He beat Nicholas Mahut, and actually they played each other again. It was unbelievable. I think it was a couple of years later. They played each other again in the first round, and Isner won that one a bit handier, as Mahut was a bit out of form. And also Raonic out of those three. So Isner just doesn't move well enough. Like, even last year he lost to, I think it was Dudi Sela. In 5 sets, and like Dudi Sela is 5'7" or 5'8", a very small man. So I just think that he doesn't move well enough, and when it gets into a rally on the grass, he's an underdog against any top player. And then Raonic has had his injury problems. He's obviously a threat. He is a threat. He serves well, and he has played good tennis in the past. And 2 years ago, he beat Federer in the semi-final, and then lost a tight match to Murray in the final. But look, he's had his injury problems, and I don't see any value in the price either. Obviously, Cilic is going to be a danger. Got to the Australian Open final this year. Pushed Federer further than he did in to 5 sets, further than he did in the Wimbledon final last year. So he's a danger, but I just don't like the price on him. He's around 12, 14 to 1. I don't love that price, so I can't really be backing it. Murray.
But it's draw dependent too, isn't it?
It's very draw dependent. Yeah. So as I say, regarding if I was to pick out one bet that I do like, one value price that I do like, and he's a player, for example, who I would be opposing on clay, is Grigor Dimitrov. I'd be opposing him on clay because basically his back, and I'm surprised that more pundits don't draw more attention to his backhand really isn't good enough. It's a solid enough shot, but if you take the time away from him, or if you hit heavy spins on a clay court towards his backhand side, he tends to struggle. However, on grass, I have to say he's 22 to 1 with Sky Bet.
Is it a bet? Are you staking?
I'm not going to stake it, but I just yet, because the problem with that bet is I think it's beautiful value, but you can't. If he ends up on the same side of the draw as a fit Federer, he's not going to get through that draw because Federer is too good.
So a way to see on that. If we go closer to home,
I would say about Dimitrov, he does. I do like him on grass more than any other subject. He moves incredibly well. He moves as well as any player out there.
Yeah.
And he serves quite well. He's got a good forehand for grass. He's got a good all round grass court game. But so I do, out of all those young guns, I do like, and like he's not really a young gun anymore, he's nearly 26, 27, but out of all those guys, that's the one price that I quite like. And if there is another outsider bet at Wimbledon for the men's that I'm looking at, and I still haven't staked yet, but I do quite like Sam Querrey at 100 to 1. There's not as much hype about Querrey, but it has to be said, he reached the Wimbledon semi-finals last year and was probably lost to Cilic because he ran out of steam, because he had a lot of tough matches against the likes of Kevin Anderson and Murray, but he's reached the semi-final last year, and also he beat Djokovic the year before, so he loves the grass. And 100 to 1, I think he serves great, hits his super forehand.
Potential for a bet there.
Potential for a bet. In the future, in the coming weeks, we'll look at the Wimbledon draw with more in more depth.
Before any of that happens, of course, with the French Open in a few weeks at the end of May, we mentioned it out with the men's. If we look at I know you love the ladies' tennis also. So is there a better opportunity out there back in back in the ladies in the French Open with a more open market?
Oh, absolutely. I think I think from an outright point of view over the last few years, over the last 10, 15 years, there hasn't been great value because of the fact that the Federer and Nadal have dominated,
Djokovic.
mostly in grass, and in Djokovic. So there's rarely been a winner, Stan Wawrinka side and Andy Murray side that has come from an outside, an outsider winner. But in the ladies' tennis, there's obviously been plenty of different winners, especially with Serena absent, and she will be back for the French, of course. But it's really hard to see. I think she's 9 to 1. It's a big ask. She hasn't shown any form since she's been back, and it's not like she's had her baby. She's been pregnant. She's had a baby. What a wonderful achievement to win the Australian Open while she was pregnant. I don't know how she was 2 months pregnant or something like that. That was a wonderful achievement. But it would be different if she was coming back and from having a child when she's 28, 29. But she's mid 30s now, and it's a big ask. And plus you have to say that even over the last couple of years, she scraped through to the final in 2016, and then Muguruza gave her a bit of a beating in that final. So
well, if we look at the four favourite with the bookies are Halep, Svitolina, Serena, who you mentioned, and Muguruza. They're odds between 6 to 1 and 10 to 1. You mentioned Serena. What about the other three there? Halep, Svitolina and Muguruza.
Yeah, well, obviously, I think Halep, she's a deserved favourite. She lost the final. Last year, and many people say that it was a bit of a choke job, and in some ways it was. But actually, I think she didn't play too badly in the final last year. She. In the first set, for example, she only had one unforced error, and people say she wasn't aggressive enough against Ostapenko. But actually, what happened was she tactically played quite a shrewd game. That she kept playing the ball deep at the centre of the court, not giving Ostapenko the angles that she needed to hit her explosive winners, which eventually did happen in the match. But then when she opened up in that match, and when she was winning, she was 6-4, 3 love up. When she was winning, she had to open up, and it actually played into Ostapenko's hands a little bit more. But so
no bet for you, so.
I would say about Halep is it's not a bet, but it wouldn't surprise me if she's thereabouts. She's obviously a main contender. She hasn't had brilliant form recently, but it wouldn't surprise me if she's.
Svitolina is surely very short at 9 to 1 for a woman who she's never even passed the quarter final in Grand Slam, has she?
Yeah, but she has a few Masters events behind her, and clay probably is her best surface. But I don't particularly fancy her. Like she's myself. I know I have a friend actually. It's a funny story. Last year in the French Open, he had backed her at 66 to 1, 50 to 1, 33 to 1, and he kept backing her at big prices, and he stood to win nearly 20 grand.
Wow!
And she was 6-3 in the quarterfinals. She was 6-3, 5-1 up with match points against Simona Halep, and Halep came back and won.
A mug's game, Meg.
A mug's game, that's for sure, Ronnie. But and the funny part of that story is he didn't even vomit. How could you not vomit after that happened? But But yeah, so there's questions over her temperament a bit. She's had some poor losses in Grand Slams recently. You know, she lost poorly to Keys in the US Open. Last year she lost to Mertens in the quarterfinals. It shouldn't really be happening. So like, as talented as she is, I think she's vulnerable against power players. I think that's what's been shown. Pavlyuchenko has beat her in the Grand Slams. Obviously Keys did last year in the US Open, so I think she's vulnerable against power players. And yeah,
so that leads us on to the fourth favourite then. Muguruza was about 10-1 with most bookies. She's the Wimbledon champion. She's won this in 2016 as well, so the previous is there. Yeah,
well, this is probably going to be my first tip. I think myself, just looking at the draw, I think all things being equal, everybody playing their best game, Muguruza bringing her A game, I think she's the best player in the draw. And for that reason, a 10-1 has to stand out to me. She's a proven winner. Even if you're talking about the favourites there, Halep still hasn't won a Grand Slam. Svitolina hasn't even passed the quarter-final of a Grand Slam. Muguruza is a proven winner. Now, she, over the course of a season, she is very up and down. And she hasn't done well in the Grand Slams and the hard courts, but she's been to the Wimbledon final once. She's won she won Wimbledon last year very convincingly, beat Venus very convincingly in the final. She had a disappointing loss to Mladenovic last year, but I feel now that she's not coming in as the French Open champion, there's a little bit less pressure on her. On her day, she for me is the best player on the field. I think she's going to prime herself for this event. So
you're going to back her 10-1.
Back her at 10-1. I will be suggesting a €100 bet. I have a different system to you, Ronnie. In my bets, I just like to track the bets by pure numbers. I'm going to tip a €100 bet on Garbi and Muguruza to win the French Open.
Very good.
And that's not an each way bet, because as far as I'm concerned, if Muguruza reaches the final, she wins the final. If she's not going to do it, she's going to go out early.
And what about last year's winner? You mentioned her, Ostapenko, 16s.
Yeah, she's obviously dangerous. She's a very explosive player. Fully deserved the title last year. She was fearless in the final. But at 16-1, she's a little bit too. I think she lost. She was on the verge of going out in the first round last year to Shariko. She's a little bit too erratic for me. So I can't be backing her at 16-1.
What about the Australian Open champion,
Wozniacki? No, not for me on clay. 20-1. I couldn't be backing her. I think she is vulnerable on clay. Her on clay, if you have a kind of a weaker shot at all, it tends to be really exposed on clay. And Wozniacki's forehand isn't up to the job on clay for me. Pliskova, obviously, at 25-1. She's just recently won Stuttgart very convincingly. Now people say she's a big girl. And that her, that she possibly doesn't move as well as she could on the clay, but she serves great. Her ground strokes are great, and even the one thing about the clay, and this is why John Isner can play quite well on clay, is that he has a little bit more time to line up his shots, and it's the same story with Pliskova. She got to the semi-final last year. I'm not going to tip it, but I wouldn't. It's definitely a price worth noting because she'd also be top 4 seed, so she'll have it'll be a while before she has to play a seeded player. So yeah.
Okay, so before we leave the French Open, is there any other outsiders that we should keep in mind over the next few weeks for value bets?
Yeah, this is a bet that I really like myself. Now I backed this girl at 150-1 to win the French Open 10 months ago, which is a really amazing price. I hope I get rewarded for backing her at that price. But I still think she is value at 66.
Who's this?
Her name is Sloane Stephens, the US Open champion. I still think she's value to win the French Open at that price, 66-1, because I feel like she has a good game for clay. She reminds me very much of Gail Monfils. She has great legs. She's a great mover on the clay. She covers the court so well, which is what you have to do on clay. So she's going to be very hard to hit through, but yet she still has the power to hit winners on clay. And she can be a bit of a counter puncher, but she still has the power to hit through the court as well. She doesn't have the sort of flamboyant shot making abilities that Della Monfils has, but she does have a winning mentality. And just to prove that point, she's been in 6 finals. She's won 6 finals. So the way I look at it, also she could, she's ranked number 9 at the moment. A decent run in the next few weeks might get her into the top 8 seedings, which would be helped, because the thing about Stevens is she can either bow out in the first or second round. It's either she's feeling it or she's not. After the US Open last year, she barely won a match for months. I think she just enjoyed herself too much. I think she was partying and it went to her head a little bit after winning the US Open. But recently she won the Miami Open. She's back in it. I'd nearly hope that Stevens doesn't have another big win on its way. I think she's most dangerous when she has maybe won a couple of matches here and there, but she hasn't. She's more dangerous when she's more vulnerable after winning the tournament.
Yeah.
So for the next, I hope she's pretty quiet for the next few months.
You're not actually going to stake on this yet?
Oh, I am going to stake. I know I've already staked myself, but I would advise a stake. I'd advise a €10 each way on Sloane Stevens to win the French Open. I think she's got a great game for clay, and she's a winner at 66 to 1.
And who's that with?
That is with Boyle Sports.
Okay.
And like I said, she'll either go out early, but if she manages to get herself to the business end of the tournament because of her winning instinct, she's very dangerous.
So €10 each way on that. Okay, well, that's great stuff, Smeg. We'll, of course, over the next few weeks, we'll look into that French Open in more detail. But if we look at just this week coming up, there's tournaments all over Europe. We have the men's tournaments, ATB tournaments in Istanbul, Munich and Estoril. We have 2 ladies tournaments, WTA as well, in Rabat and Prague.
Yeah. Is
there anything that tickles your fancy for this week's matches?
Well, funnily enough, I had a bet. I really fancied the price in the WTA Prague. I really fancied a girl called Vondrousova to win that, but she was at 33 to 1 with Powers. But I've looked at the draw there, and I can't confirm this, but it seems like she has pulled out of the draw, which is an awful pity, because I really felt that was a fantastic price. She's playing at home, young future Grand Slam champion. So I won't be. I'm quite tempted by Schmiedlova at 50 to 1. She recently waltzed through the field in Bogota, and a much weaker field, obviously, in Bogota, to win that title there a few weeks ago. But there really isn't much value on that for me. Bartel is the defending champion. 66 to 1 is a big price. I wouldn't put anyone off backing that, but I will not be putting any bets on the Prague since Vondrousova is gone. So what I'm going to talk about is the Rabat in Morocco. I fancy a girl called Laura Siegemund at 12 to 1 with Bet365. So 12 to 1 with Bet365. Siegemund actually was supposed to be defending the title that Pliskova won in Stuttgart, and she had a great win in the first round over Barbara Strakova, and then she lost in 3 sets to Coco van de Vee. And actually I was thinking, that's disappointing, but Van de Vee actually proved that form actually reached quite good, because Van de Vee went all the way to the final, beating the likes of Halep on the way. I think she's a class act on the field. I think there's Mertens is in the field as well, obviously has to be respected, but there aren't really many great players. I mean, Polona Hercog is the second favourite for most bookies, and Siegemund, I think Siegemund is a level above that, and if she had been injured, I think she's coming back into form. 12 to 1.
What sort of money are you thinking on Siegemund? I'm
going to go 20 each way on Laura Siegemund.
20 each way, and that's with
Bet365.
Okay.
Apart from that, I can't really tip any in the men's side. I can't honestly tip anything with confidence. In Istanbul, if there are any bets to be had, I would say Istanbul. Cilic is the big favourite there. He's the defending champion, but Cilic recently got married, so I can't imagine that his mind has been totally in tennis over the last week or two, and he's very, very skinny at 2 to 1. There are fellas like Berrettini, a young Italian guy, very talented. He's 40 to 1. I'd also would be looking at Vesely is 33 to 1 with Paddy Power as well. That's not a bad price. And Lajovic is 41 with Sky Bet. They're all good prices. I'll probably be having small nibbles on them, but I'm not going to go as far as to tip it to risk the reputation of the Mugs Game podcast by tipping speculative bets at big prices like that.
So to recap that, you're staking. You have 3 bet stakes, Meg. Am I right? €100 on Muguruza to win the French Open at 10 to 1.
10 to 1, yeah.
10 each way on Sloane Stevens at 66s, And then for this week, for Rabat in Morocco, you have 20 each way on Siegemund at 12-1. Bet 365.
Absolutely, yeah. And those are my bets for this week and for the French Open.
Good stuff. You said you're going to the Crucible next weekend.
Going to the Crucible next weekend, yeah.
Anyone backed?
I backed Mark Allen at 16-1. As soon as Selby got knocked out, I felt the draw is obviously open for Mark Allen. And after winning, I think was it the Masters this year. I feel Mark Allen has a new sense of confidence about him. I'm liking the way I'm liking his attitude. Okay. He reeled off the last 5 frames against Joe Ferreira in the last 16. So yeah, I like him. Obviously, I'm really disappointed. I said to myself, Ding 12-1. I really wanted to back it, and I didn't back it. And it looks to me like Ding is the most likely winner. Okay. But I will say one thing: it looks like Williams is going to beat Robert Milkins, and if he does, I quite fancy Ali Carter to beat Williams. We don't know the prices yet, but Ali Carter, he will be an underdog price. I quite fancy him to beat Williams in the quarterfinal. The way he bet Ronnie, he was just striking the ball so well, barely put a foot wrong in that final session, didn't really give Ronnie much of a chance. And I like what he said afterwards. I'm not here, it's not about beating Ronnie. I want to win a world championship, and he has that sort of attitude where I think I'm not convinced that Williams is playing that brilliantly.
So that's a market to check.
Yeah, that's one to check out. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff.
So,
good stuff, Smeg.
Good stuff, Ronnie. So that will be the conclusion of our first podcast at a Mugs game with Smeg and Ronnie. We hope you enjoyed. If anybody has liked the podcast, please share it on Twitter, on Facebook. If you want to tweet us with any propositions or any questions of your own, you're free to do so. We will be sharing it on the Twitter handle Dr. Seppa. So if you want to follow Dr. Seppa on Twitter, that is where you will find the Mugs Game podcast. So if you have any questions or any queries, get in touch with us there. Ronnie, have you anything to say?
We'll see you next week, guys. Good luck.
Good luck.